Previously on our series on sirens. Sirens. The last thing you want to hear, but you'll be glad you did. We call them outdoor warning sirens because tornadoes are not the only reason that these sirens might be activated.
The siren system can run strictly off battery power. After a siren is sounded, that is a cue to go inside and seek shelter and look for information on what may be occurring from any reliable source.
Welcome back to EM Talks. In the last episode, we covered what the outdoor warning system is, but in this episode, we're going to look back at what our old siren system was. So come along as we walk through the history of our early warning systems, the creation of the civil defense, and our own modern siren systems. The warning signal is something that predates most early civilizations. What started out as small tribes alerting one another with smoke signals eventually developed into large drums. Villages began to grow into towns, and the noises used to alert the population also grew. Large warning bells were used all across Europe and the early Americas to warn people of fires and other emergencies. And as towns turned into cities and fires turned into world wars, a warning system for air raids became a huge necessity. The end result? The civil defense siren system, the grandfather to our modern day outdoor warning sirens. The year is 1954. The Cold War is in full swing. During those times, you might find yourself seeking shelter in an air raid shelter much like this one. Just a few years earlier, in 1950, President Truman created the Federal Civil Defense Administration with one goal in mind: to minimize the effects of an attack on our civilian population. They would alert the community via the sirens. Outdoor warning sirens were installed all over the US, and the first warning sirens to be installed in the Amarillo area happened to be just around 1954. Since then, there have been many changes to our siren system as the city and counties grew. Some of the earliest sirens were moved to different parts of the city where they were more needed. New sirens continue to be added as we continue to grow. We often get calls of asking why we are removing certain sirens, replacing other sirens, or just plain can't hear the sirens. The answer is something we're all familiar with: the panhandle weather. Sirens installed during the 1950s all shared a few oversights in common: the capabilities of the siren's electrical technology, and most importantly, the wooden poles that they were installed on. This is one of the main reasons we replace or even remove sirens. The poles themselves are failing. Modern sirens are installed on metal poles, which do not deteriorate like their wooden counterparts. One of the very interesting designs about these new metal poles versus the old wooden poles, other than they won't deteriorate, is this pole is actually 50 feet long, not 40. We place them over 10 feet deep in the ground to ensure that these poles aren't going anywhere. Another reason we would remove older sirens is the difficulty in maintaining them. Often these sirens are so old that the parts no longer exist. Our only option is to remove them. It's not all bad news, however. By removing multiple older sirens and replacing them with a few new, not only are we saving on resources, but we're also ensuring you continue to stay alerted to the possible emergencies. Currently, the Amarillo Office of Emergency Management has 4 different types of sirens that we use. The first is the Federal Signals 508. These sirens are the latest and greatest sirens that we utilize in our system. It has an audible radius of 7,300 feet. As you can see here, these new 508 sirens are extremely large and fairly tall. So at 40 feet in the air, they may seem a little bit smaller than they really are down here on the ground. The next is the Federal Signals 2001, 135, and 125 series, with an audible radius of about 6,400 feet. The main difference between the 2001 and a 508 is what objects will the sound be able to penetrate through when it goes off.
and the size of the bell makes a difference.
Time for our legacy sirens. The Federal Signal's SD-10 was first created in 1954, the same year sirens were introduced right here in Amarillo. These sirens have an audible radius of only 1,800 feet. The last siren is the Federal Signal's 2T22, the oldest of all the sirens that we currently still use. These were put in production just a few years before the SD-10s in 1952 and have an audible radius of 2,000 feet.
This is actually one of the older sirens that we had to take down. This is a Federal Signal's 5. The audible radius on this specific siren was only about 400 to 600 feet. This siren was recently removed and replaced with a more modern 508 siren.
In this episode, we dived into the history of our outdoor warning system. What started out as simple warning bells and smoke signals has turned into a highly advanced technological system of sirens all across the U.S. Living in the Panhandle has created some challenges for our sirens, however. One of the reasons we would remove the sirens is due to our safety concerns that siren or the pole the siren sits on causes to the surrounding buildings or houses near it. Another question that our office will receive: why can't I hear the siren, or at least hear it very well while I'm outside? The Amarillo wind plays a very large role in carrying sound waves to or away from an individual location. And as natural forces take their toll on our system, we continue to upgrade and repair our sirens. From our humble beginnings as the Civil Defense Administration, coordinating civilian efforts in preparation and response to an aerial or nuclear threat, the responsibilities and threats that the modern Office of Emergency Management faces far exceed the early civil defense mission. The Office of Emergency Management works diligently every day to ensure our citizens stay safe and informed in the event of an emergency. This is a responsibility we do not take lightly. Sirens, however, are only one of the many tools that OEM offers to citizens to make sure that you are prepared and informed of an emergency. In our next episode, you'll get a first-hand look at a NOAA weather radio, as well as an overview of an advanced alerting system that you can have right in your pocket.